Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Georgiana.
And this is Wholehearted Loving, where we teach you simple tools to grow the muscles you need to be with big feelings and overwhelming sensations in your body.
Whether you have active challenges in your life or relationships, or whether you're just here to learn to be kinder to yourself, we pull out all the little things that make life feel better, the things that give you a sense of hope and direction.
So if you're too hard on yourself or on others,
if you want to feel real, deep connection in your life and relationships,
even if you want to reprogram your inner critic while you're sleeping,
this is a great place to be.
So welcome, and we hope this episode brings you just the tidbit you needed today.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to call it taking advantage of your loved ones in a good way, for doing your inner work, for inspiration, for practice, and for discovering what's possible. You can find self-reflection prompts for this episode and every episode on our Instagram at Wholehearted Loving, and you can learn more about us and have practice live at wholeheartedloving.com. And we'll start, as always, with a body-based self-connection practice before we connect to each other and this podcast.
Okay, well, today's practice is, I guess, maybe a little bit different than usual in that it's possible you could follow along, but it might be something you listen to or watch and take a mental note and try it out in your own way afterwards. But what we're going to do is play with intentional sensation, and I'm going to say intentional sensations that help you shift focus or feel good. And in this case, Steph and I are using objects. And maybe as you hear us talk and share what we're doing, you realize you have some version of this already. You already know that you do this or you do it, but maybe haven't put together why or what the felt experience is actually of doing this thing that you do. And maybe you've never done it before and you could give it a try and see how it feels. So do you want to go first, Steph, or do you want me to go first?
I want you to go first.
Okay. I'm holding it up. So if you're watching the video, you'll see this like a round spiky ball. It's like an acupressure ball. It's got little metal spikes in it. I also have a mat made of this material that I like to stand on. And my kids call it the torture mat. They're like, why would you stand on that on purpose? But I like it. But I have this ball. And because I'm recording a podcast, choosing not to stand right now. And I don't think I could stand on that thing for too long. But this ball is portable. I can have it in a meeting. I can have it in a session with a client. I can have it while I'm recording a podcast. And I sort of just roll it around in my hand, or right now I'm just running it on my thigh. And I can do different things with it. But the reason why I like it is it gives this like sharp sensory input for my system that's just enough to be like, whoa, we're awake. Like I'm here. I'm here. And it can also help make this a little louder than the other things that might be present that I don't necessarily want to be pulled away or distracted by or go spiraling into. So I wouldn't say so much that it's like a distraction and disassociation tool or the way I'm using it. It's more of, it lets me really feel I'm here. Because there's just more sensory input for me squeezing this. I'm like, oh yeah, I feel that I am right here with Steph right now. Whereas if I wasn't holding this, I feel like it would be easier for me to float away a little bit, metaphorically speaking, energetically speaking, like, and so it helps me be a little bit more here, a little bit more present. I can feel it. I just put it down on the table and sat and looked around. I have a very different body feeling experience. And like connection with you than when I pick it up. Yeah. Even my breath changes right away when I pick it up and I feel it.
That's so neat because and it's such a compassionate and helpful and scientific way of looking at it. That's exactly the sort of thing that in the past I would have maybe shamed myself or shoulded myself about seeking distraction. But it's true. I'm looking for sensory input to keep me in this moment, you know? And that's very much what I'm doing with my rubber band, which is my item. Is there anything else you want to say about your ball?
No, just that I'm happy with it. And I don't always hold this spiky ball, but I'm aware enough now of moments where I feel like I need it more, like it would be helpful to have it. And then I also have moments where I've forgotten completely that I own this thing and that it's here. And I'm like, oh, let's just pick it up and see. And some moments I'll be like, ew, gross. I don't want to touch that right now. And other moments will be like, oh yeah, I like that thing. So it's also recognizing that what feels good sometimes and what's helpful sometimes to help us be a little bit more here or be a little bit more with things that feel hard aren't always going to stay the same.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So when we started this practice, we're looking around, what could we grab? What do we feel drawn to hold. And there's the couple of items here that I often feel drawn to hold. You might recognize my little bear rock.
Yeah.
And that's really grounding. That's like a solid thing to hang on to. It's not at all what I want to be holding right now. And I surprised myself by gravitating towards this rubber band, which I felt pulled to wrap around my finger and then snap repeatedly. And so it's giving me like a rhythm and a presence, and exactly what you said, a sharp sensory reminder that I'm here. And that's feeling like what I need.
Yeah, and like sometimes we might use sensory items to take us a little bit away from here, and that's okay because sometimes we need to. It feels a bit too overwhelming, right? But I think we always like to remind people, like, how do you notice when it's time to return to here a little bit more, right? And does the going away help you build capacity to return back to your life and what's in front of you and how you feel and what's going on for you, or does it continuously keep taking you further away from yourself? You have a thinking face.
I do have a thinking face, but it's not. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to name like drugs and alcohol and exercise. Like those are all sensory experiences. Also, they change the sensory experience. Those might not be objects that you're holding, but it's an attempt to bring some comfort or regulation to our systems. Right. This is just a different form of that. And like this, holding this acupressure ball has less harmful impact for me in my life than some other sensory experience choices I could make that could give me a different sensory experience, but come with, maybe some downsides I'm not interested in.
Yeah. And I would encourage people to explore the sensations of the moment, sensations of the past. There's going to be things that you think feel good to you that might not in the moment. Old go-tos. I'm always reminded of how much I used to enjoy having laser hair removal, which feels a lot like this rubber band snapping. And I sure don't anymore. There was a time where that was an escape, an accessible sensory experience that sort of matched the pain I was feeling emotionally or whatever.
And our sensory palette can change.
Yeah.
Right. And I always remember learning from Dr. Gordon Neufeld, and he's talking about sensory experiences and helping me understand why some people are sensation seekers, right? Where they need more of a certain kind of sensation to feel alive and here. And he talks about like the thrill seekers. And that helps them live in a space that feels more alive for them. And he said, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just concerning when you maybe find yourself wired like that and you couple that with absolutely no fear and no healthy risk assessment skills. But it makes sense. It makes sense for all of us to want to feel alive. And so that I think that's interesting too, is if we've done anything to sort of numb ourselves out, we might find, oh, now I need stronger sensations to get me that alive feeling, right? Or if you've felt stuck or depressed or have been suppressing actively, consciously or subconsciously suppressing emotion for a long time, you might need a big jolt of something, some sensory experience to feel more here, more alive, more like checked into life.
6-pack of laser hair removal treatments, baby. That'll do it. Well, and this is also part of the utilizing what we have, right? So we're describing now sort of unconscious. I mean, we're using them consciously, but there would be a lot of unconscious uses of objects that we've done over the course of our lives. Yeah. And one of the gifts of this sort of sensory work is that you can, once you've connected enough to know what sensation or what emotion your body wants more of, you can actually like arrange that for yourself with objects. Yeah. So we just had a call where G was walking a member through sturdiness of a headboard, and like in the past I might not have known, what does that even mean? What applications could that have in my life? And now I know the feeling of wanting sturdiness, or in this case with the rubber band, I want to feel expansiveness but a bit of resistance in my hands. That's giving me, I don't even know what it's giving me, but I know the sensation that I don't want and I know how to get it, right?
This reminds me of a few things. Like I've worked with many parents along the way, and just adults, and where it's not relating to children, talking about hair pulling or like, cutting, burning, all sorts of things. And yes, there's many layers to that kind of behavior, but one of the layers is the sensory seeking experience in an attempt to regulate. And I remember with one of my kids, I think it was fourth grade or something, they had long hair. And I just found them like sucking and chewing on their hair like all day long. And like I'm trying to like be curious about it, not make judgments about it, not let my fear of being judged as a bad mother come into it, or worrying about what their teacher thinks or their friends think. And like starting to like smell not too great, and it's getting crusty because they're just sucking and chewing on their hair all day. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what sensory experience that's providing that's feeling helpful or needed. Right. And we managed to talk about it in a way that was not about shaming, but just about curiosity and trying some different things out. Like, is it a chewing sensation that would help? Is it a sucking sensation? Like, what is it like being able to twirl something in your fingers? And we tried out some different things, and it got progressively, I'm going to say better, in air quotes, better, in that they didn't necessarily mind chewing their hair. I don't think he thought it was an issue, but it's not ideal. It's not the most hygienic thing to do. It's not the most pleasant thing to be sitting across a classmate or a student or your teacher being like sucking on your hair the whole time, right? So it's not the most socially fitting, acceptable thing. Not that I'm training my kids to be socially acceptable, but wasn't really serving him in the best way to use that as his tool forever. And so we wanted to be curious about what other options there were. And I think in the end, we tried out a few sort of these oral sort of chew, toy, suck things. And it sort of gradually did the thing until that type of sensory regulation wasn't really needed anymore. And like, just, I couldn't imagine at that time being his mom that he was ever going to stop doing it. It was like such a thing that he did all the time. And then eventually it just sort of shifted. We showed an alternative. We gave him options to try alternatives. And then it sort of gradually changed. And I know that as parents, when we're worried or concerned about our kids, we can let fear sort of take over, or we can let fear of judgment from others take over. Or we can get really stuck on the behavior and wanting our children to change behavior. And so we're like, stop doing that. Stop doing that. Why are you doing that? And trying to get to all the whys, and they don't really have an answer. And they also can't stop. And it just causes, I think, so much frustration on everyone's part. And then also shame, and then wanting to hide things like that. So it's just nice to understand these are just attempts to regulate.
And to approach ourselves in that way too, right? Like you're talking about your kids, and I'm talking about we're our own kids, we're learning to reparent ourselves. So how do we give ourselves the grace and curiosity that you've just described giving to your kid, And for the parents too, we also need to give that all to ourselves.
Yes. And like looking at underlying, like what's the emotion or sensation that's sort of uncomfortable to be with, that's causing me or my child or my partner or whoever to be seeking out a sensory experience that feels a bit better or feels different, just to bring curiosity to it.
Yeah. And this is probably a good example. If I had a kid and I wanted to figure out some sensory thing, some curiosity that I had about them, I would take great advantage of you as an expert in these matters and as a parent yourself. And this is kind of what I'm talking about when we're doing our inner work, and we're maybe, hopefully, eventually, I know you started out really looking to others as examples of what are they getting, how are they being, what options are available to me, and what is someone else triggering up in me that I could look at,
One of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And it was a huge eye opener for me too, because I was just trying to feel better, really no sense of what that meant, like no tangible way to go about it. I was just immersing myself and kind of hoping for the best. But now I'm at a point, and this is something we can all take advantage of all the time if we know what's going on, is getting together in whatever way with people who are going to reflect back to you or support you through or challenge you in ways that align with whatever your current inner work is for yourself. So I can give my example. Would that be helpful?
Yes, I'd love to hear your example. And I just really like the sentence you just said, something to do with your current inner work. And for some people, I think people are very aware of what their current inner work is, meaning like, what's the current thing I got the forefront of what, this is my interpretation of what it means, of what is helpful and important for me to practice in my life right now. And some of us might not operate that way or have that awareness of what, like, it's helpful to be guided by current inner work theme.
Hmm.
I'm very much wired that way to like
Yeah.
sort of have a guiding light for me for the day or the week or the month. And it was never that structured, but it was just like, I want to have something I'm practicing.
Mm. Wow.
And definitely, I think I've had that in me, but more so in the last decade. And I think I've like turbocharged it in the last decade.
Yeah.
But not in a way that's taxing, in a way
Mm.
that's fun and
Mm.
simple and
Nice.
like easy to add into my day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neat.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have that structure or guiding light. I have like a shitstorm and some confusion, and then eventually I'm like, help! So to bring any of that in to any degree, yeah, right, is super helpful. So one of the first times I was able to sort of apply this consciously, I knew I had a reactivity in me, like a very emotional, defensive reactivity. You can know that till you're blue in the face, and then what, right? I'm
Can
like
you say more about
hoping if I
what does that look like? What does that mean? A really defensive emotional reactivity.
Yes. So very quick to cry and get shaky. So defensiveness to me looks like literally verbally defending myself, over
Mhm.
explaining, assuming that I need to explain and like defend my feelings and make other people understand them as if they don't already. Assuming the other person or people are like against me and trying to get something that I don't want to give, or like a lot of unhelpful mental frameworks that then manifest in, unhelpful words. Crying is the main one. Like I don't want to have that shaky feeling that I'm being attacked when I'm simply not.
Right. And when you're talking about crying as not being what you want, you're not talking about like crying as a bad thing, but it's just like there was this very consistent pattern of feeling like overwhelmed and defensive, and like
Yeah.
crying was sort of just coupled up with that very heavily.
Yes, yeah, it was the overwhelming feeling that then like bursts out of my face in tears kind of thing.
Mhm.
It's like I wouldn't be feeling any sort of weeping feeling if I wasn't imagining I was under attack, which often I was imagining, and not in like some large way. Like it's quite subtle energetic stuff, but it feels really big, right? So I realized I'm in a circumstance where this is going to come up often. I need to be having a certain type of conversation pretty regularly that is prime landscape for defensiveness and reactivity. And on the other side of that landscape, I'm faced with a very defensive, reactive person. But isn't me. It's a total reflection of me. But we're both doing that, right? And I was like, I can do something about this. Like I want to do something about this. So I'm going to take advantage of it. I know I'm going to have conversations with a person with whom I experience that.
Mhm.
So I'm going to prepare going into that. I'm going to have tools that I bring with me that I remember. I'm going to set intentions for the conversation. I'm going to build in enough pause that I can remember reactivity is here and it's optional for me to pick it up.
Okay, can we just pause here for a second? He said, I know I have to have these difficult conversations with someone who I'm just imagining you both trigger up each other's defenses, right? In terms of temperament and style, but also topic.
Yeah.
All right. And you're saying now, I now know that I can prepare for these conversations. And I thought, well, in the past, probably it never occurred to us that we could prepare. And if we did think we could prepare, it'd be like, let me prepare all the ways that I think this person is wrong and get that super clear in my mind, even write them down, right?
Yeah.
And prepare every defense that I'm going to launch back at them if they come on the attack for me. And that's what preparing for conversation might have looked like or sounded like in the past.
Or
And
getting drunk. You can also get drunk with a
yes,
difficult
that's true.
conversation.
That's how some people prepare for a date, I've heard,
Yep.
right? And no judgment, but just naming that we have different ways of preparing. And you're sharing now, hey, I have all of these other options available to me now in how I want to prepare for a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
That delights me.
It's pretty delightful. It's also pretty annoying.
I have to be responsible to prepare in a constructive way.
Right? Yeah. I want someone else to do this for me. This sucks, but I can. I guess I can.
I want to normalize that. I want to normalize. You mentioned it today on a priming call that we did of like, let's not ignore the part of us that just wants to have a tantrum, says, screw this. Why do I always have to be responsible and work on my part and practice the thing? You know, I think
Yeah.
it's a fair thing we can all relate to, not always wanting to be that, you
Yeah.
know, like take that part on.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. On a positive note, also about reactivity, but differently. So I'll get reactive equally, whether what I'm faced with is reactivity or just like pleasant presence. So I noticed that and was like, hey, wait a minute. This is all inside me. I'm like generating this myself.
Because it doesn't matter what people bring, pleasant, unpleasant,
Yeah.
garners the same reaction.
Yeah. Right. So noticing that was really neat because I was like, wait a minute. This other person I'm talking to, they're very easy to talk to. Like, when someone says, I want to tell you something, but don't get mad, it's like, that's impossible. We can't know if they're going to get mad or not. We have to be able to hold the potential of their getting mad. He's not going to get mad. And like, I guess I'm not used to being able to speak and just be received. I'm getting used to that and to not be made bad or wrong, to not be faced with a whole bunch of anxious shoulds in response. Like, the sort of experience where you can describe pain points in your life and just have them witnessed. And, I love you is the response instead of like, no, should we throw some logs on this bonfire of drama and talk about all the maybe ways that things could be different or, all the stuff that makes you just kind of shut down eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized like, this is a person I can talk to about anything. And therefore, I should, because I want to learn how to be with all these things. So then I'm moving past my reactivity in response to another person and into my inner reactivity of where I feel like maybe I should be censoring my emotions or, over describing, trying to make understand, trying to make valid.
Yeah.
And the whole time having this reactive insides that are the opposite of like, oh, but maybe I'm not valid, maybe I'm not good, maybe I'm bad and wrong and all this stuff.
Right.
And there's room with this person to sit with all of that
Yeah.
and like not have to rush anywhere. And I was like, damn, I need that lesson. I need to do this actively.
Okay. Oh my gosh, this is so sweet. I'm just going to see if I track and like pull out different layers I'm hearing in this. So you're saying there's a conversation or a series of conversations I need to have with someone that I know are going to be challenging and difficult. And the way the two of us dance together has a little charge to it that makes it a bit challenging, right? And also I'd love to be able to have those conversations in a way that feel at least a little bit better, if not decent or good for me. And an awareness of I probably have some skills or things I need to practice in order for those conversations to feel better or easier. Now, on top of that, you're saying I have a separate person in my life where I have a very different feeling. I feel like they're easy to talk to, that I could bring sort of my whole spectrum of emotion and thought, and they would bring a really warm, inviting presence, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
And then I think you're telling us you realize that even with that person, there's stuff on the inside you notice coming up, stuff in the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts that are like sort of uncomfortable, right?
They're maybe even more uncomfortable because they're so unfamiliar.
Right? And so the irony of wanting to be able to talk to someone who welcomes you in and is patient and, really listens in a non-judgmental way. And then if we're not aware enough and intentional enough, we might push that away and shut that down and sabotage that because it's, like you said, feels unfamiliar, unsafe, even though we long for it, right? So I think that's important to notice. And we see this a lot with people who are looking for partners. And they have a type of, warm, connected, aligned partner present who they really want to have. And then it sort of shows up in front of them. They're like, wait a second. This person's a scammer. Something's wrong with them, right? Like something's wrong with them or something's wrong with me or this is eventually going to blow up because it can't possibly be this good. And so what I'm taking from what you're sharing is on top of it being great to practice skills with someone who does have the ability to do things in a way that feels better or more constructive. It's great to be in that energy with someone that's not reactive in that, over nervous system dysregulating way with you, because now we can't just point the finger at the other person.
Yeah.
And we get to see, okay, when someone else isn't bringing that charge, holy crap, I create the charge myself too.
Yep. That's right.
And again, not to be hard on ourselves, but to get to I'm saying delight, but maybe most of us don't feel that as a delightful experience in the beginning, but like delight in the, I get to discover more about myself and what's touchy for me and what's raw and like, what's settled a little bit more within me, but what's also still needing some gentleness and holding and healing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, like, if I was wanting to practice being honest about things, like, say I had a thing that I thought would make somebody mad for me to express it, and I was afraid to say the thing, then I would go directly to Georgiana, who has such a beautiful response to that sort of thing. And I would practice saying the thing I was afraid to say, because I know it will be received well, whatever it is. But if I wanted to practice my reactivity to somebody getting angry about something I say, no point going to Georgiana about that. But I do have some people in mind with whom I could quite easily practice that. And so that's what I'm meaning when I'm saying taking advantage of the people around you for your work.
Being intentional about what each person helps you practice based on how they're wired and how you dance together.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's magic because it's like so many opportunities to practice different sides of things. Because as you know, it's helpful to practice, how do I say a thing I'm afraid to say, right? It's also helpful to practice, how do I say a thing that I want to say and someone's bringing angry energy at me? Like, do I know how to like stand sturdy in myself? Do I know how to, keep myself safe? Do I know how to set the boundaries that I need to set? Do I know how to walk away when it's time to walk away? Which you might not experience. That's not what you would be practicing if you came to me. Maybe if you came to me, it would be, do you know how to receive love and care and like someone's warm, gentle presence?
Yeah. God,
Right?
that's a lot of work. And that's also really key, right? How to receive somebody's whatever it is, fill in the blank. Warm, gentle presence, in my case, was something that felt pretty unfamiliar. But we really project our experiences onto the world in this way, where you might be walking through the world thinking everybody's angry all the time. And the notion that somebody could just be still and present and calm might be so unfamiliar that it's, unbelievable. So even if you don't know what it is in particular that you want to be working on inwardly this week or whenever, just to sample different energies, to seek evidence that they exist, and to notice how it feels in your body and what it brings up. And maybe you're familiar with one thing, but the other thing actually feels more comfortable, or vice versa.
So many ways to practice. And this makes me think of coming back to what you said earlier about practicing saying the thing that you've always felt is hard to say. And I'm going to spin off this a little bit. I'll give an example. Like, we've worked with people and I've been in this position where I've been too afraid to say out loud what my preference is. It could be as simple as which restaurant to go to, or like, do you want to stay in and have dinner or go out, right? Do you want to have a quiet night in, or do you want to go see friends? And there was a time in my life where I was like, oh, like, which one should I pick? So the other person feels happier, or whatever the thing is. And I didn't have enough practice in my life speaking up, or even knowing sometimes what my preferences are, but definitely speaking up for my preferences. Now, I might realize, hey, there's this person that I seem to have conflict with, like, let's just call it my boss or colleague or someone, and we sort of butt heads making this stuff up. Like, that's probably not the easiest relationship to start speaking up about your preferences with. But it might feel like the most pressing place, right? Because you're like, hey, I don't want to work like this together. And you might have a real idea about how you want to work and what's not working for you. And you think, I really need to talk to this person about my preferences and what's okay and what's not okay. And yes, that can be true. But we're like, that's probably not the easiest place to practice that new skill for you, right? And not the best place to get affirmation that you're allowed to. You have a right to speak up for your preferences, right? You may want to practice speaking your preferences with a dear friend who you trust and feel safe with, just to say, hey, tonight, can we watch this movie instead of that one? Like, can we go for a walk instead of go to the busy restaurant? And you might not feel like there's anything pressing in your friendship to work on or to practice, but you might be missing that's like real fertile ground to be practicing these skills that are hard for you in general, but definitely going to be harder doing it with someone you have a difficult dance with.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts? So something that came up while you were speaking is I imagine there are a great many people who feel like they can really only bring things to their therapist. I wonder what you think about.
I think that's a good pattern to notice, whether you tend to do that. And like, what are the underlying beliefs that you hold? Is it only someone who's not part of my daily life is safe to share myself with fully? Is it I'm only allowed to speak up when I pay someone to listen to me? Is it it's only safe to speak up when someone's professionally trained? Not that that always means they're better, but professionally trained to listen and hold space and support? Is it because I tend to have a pattern of compartmentalizing my life so that only certain people get to hear certain elements of my life or the fuller picture of my life? So I wouldn't necessarily say it's good or bad or anything like that, but just a really interesting pattern to notice and see how that might show up in other ways. And I would say, if ever we're living in a pattern where it's quite extreme and quite black and white, I would say, well, what would it be like to explore a little bit more freedom or possibility in that? Like, how might it change or enrich your life to lean in 1% more? Like, what if it was a therapist and one other person, but only about this area of your life?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How, like, play with sharing a little bit.
Yeah.
Notice how that feels, not because that's better per se, but like now you have more options available to you. If you realize, oh, that actually feels okay. Like I can talk to my therapist about all these things. I can also talk to like friend A about this area of my life. Maybe I'm not ready to talk about BCD area of my life, but topic A, I can do that.
Yeah.
Right. And then once you get comfortable with that, and you're like, oh, maybe I could bring a little bit more to that person, or maybe I could bring topic B to this other person in my life, or this group of people who are supportive and gone through the same thing. Right. So I just like to play. Like, I hope that that's what gets conveyed here is like, it's all an exploration. It's all playing with, can I create more options for myself where I'm not just stuck in one rigid way and I panic to think that I can't do it that way. And it frightens me. And so I feel maybe safe in my version of what safe feels like right now, but also quite limited.
Yeah, we're so limited by our assumptions. And this is definitely something I want people to take away. And especially for people who are thinking the only appropriate or safe person, or the only person who would want to hear all of this from me, is somebody who I pay money to. There are just so many people in the world who don't feel that way. And we might not know that that's even possible, right? I'm thinking to a time last week, I've got some challenging stuff coming up, and just the different projections that appeared as a result of that. I sort of thought within myself, oh, well, if there's a challenging time, having house guests kind of doesn't make sense. It might be nice to have people around, but they probably wouldn't want to be around for that anyway. In the same moment, I have two other friends, one who thinks a lot like me. So that, by the way, is put all feelings at bay until you blow up. And therefore, obviously, that's hard for anyone to hold. So we're not used to that, right? We'd rather hide in a corner and deal with it ourselves. The friend who I'd say is much more outward and supported in her life, so came from that experience. Her first thought, and I was floored and delighted, was, is it going to be challenging for you in 2 weeks? I'll come back and visit then at that time. And I was like, dude, that would be so nice. Amazing. And the other friend who's more like me was like, I was assuming you wouldn't want us to be here. Like, I would want to hide and not, like, I thought it would be too much. It's like, oh, interesting. Like, we all are just projecting our assumptions about the world all the time. So, and I love for us to all challenge our assumptions, especially ones about who can hold me and my emotions, who wants to hear from me, who wants to connect. There's a lot more connection available and understanding and emotional meeting than I thought was possible, than I knew was possible before.
I felt really delighted to hear someone suggest, well, is it going to be really hard for you in 2 weeks? Then I'll come back, right? I'll come back and be sure to visit. And what would be neat is noticing whether we typically have a pattern of saying, no, that's fine, because we don't want people in that energy, or we're worried about burdening people or not being at our best self for someone, right? And you want them to come back when you're on your best self time. And like, I'd encourage all of us just say, yeah, I'd love to try that out.
Yeah.
Right? Why don't you pop by? And I'd love to see how that feels for me, because that's sort of new.
Nice.
Right? So you're not promising, like, you're not saying, hey, I would love that, because you don't know. But you're saying, interesting. I'd be open to trying that out.
Yeah.
Because I usually tell people not to come by when I'm having a hard time.
Right?
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
I had a neat pattern break like that with an online dating fellow who was like, he loves, like, I don't even know the term for it, where you take a backpack and you camp for a long time without a car or a house.
Okay.
He's like, oh, do you like that kind of thing? And in the past, I might have been inspired to either say, like, love it, like, yeah, sign me up.
I don't know what
Or
you're talking about. Yes, I love it. Do it
Right?
all the time. Yes.
All the time. Totally. I'm so into that. I better go buy a backpack. Or it would be like, no, not into that. Like, see ya. And this time, what I actually said was, I have no idea if I'd like that. I'd like to like that. I won't know if I like it till it's happening or possibly till afterwards. Yeah, right?
I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're essentially saying, I'm open to discovering, I'm open to be the possibility, and I'm open to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm open to have more information about myself. It
Yeah.
could be I discover that I think it's awful and horrible, and hooray, because now I know it's awful and horrible and I never want to do that again. And I probably wouldn't be helpful to date someone who really wants that to be an active part of your relationship together.
Totally.
Right.
So that's a great example too of like you can take advantage of online dating for that. It doesn't have to be a person that you know exactly how things are going to go. It's just about like utilizing the resources around you for self-discovery.
There's so many resources around us. They're presenting all the time. Right.
Mhm.
I want to speak to this thing that you asked earlier about what are my thoughts about people who say or who feel that they only can share with their therapist. One thing that I wanted to add is if that's the case, notice the qualities of this therapist. Notice the quality of your dance together, right? What is it about how you feel when you're with this person, or what energy they bring, or what kind of dance you get to do together that you enjoy, that feels safe and comfortable for you to bring yourself more fully to? And
We've already got such different ideas about what this means. Because for you, you're like describing the person that's comfortable with the therapist. I'm like, that comfort is created by me paying you. You will listen now. You won't judge me. If you do, I'll never know because you took a class and you know what to do with your face.
yes, yes, right? Maybe that's how we interpret it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's such a neat thing to notice because, I mean, there's so much contained within that, right? Like what I've just described is from the perspective of a person who can't notice what feels safe and comfortable in the other person. I just have to default to, well, I'm paying you like it's professional, so I trust that. Like it's
Yes.
got nothing to do with how I feel.
No, right? So what you're saying is I'm really tied to how this dynamic came to be and why, which is we have a client professional relationship. I pay you. So that's the how and the what, right? Or the how and the why we're here together and why you listen to me
Yeah.
and why you create a safe space for me. But like, what about the experience, like you said, the felt experience of like what is actually here? Like
Yeah.
even if you paid them a gazillion dollars, even if they were like superstar trained, they're doing something. What is the something that feels sort of decent or sort of nice or really pleasant? And so if and when you can get to that point, then you can broaden it and generalize it to other areas of your life where you can say, oh, I really like when someone lets me say a full sentence without jumping in. Now you know, hey, I enjoy that quality in a connection with another human being. I'm going to notice where else that happens in my life. And you might be pleasantly surprised that there are some places and some people where you have that already, but you haven't been aware of it and you haven't been aware that you enjoy it and you haven't felt the enjoyment in your body.
Yeah.
And you can practice doing that more. But perhaps you're like, other extreme, I've never felt it with anyone in my life, anyone else. So now you get to play a different game of, I want to go out into the world and discover more of that. Put
Yeah.
myself in places where I get to experience more of someone being willing to like just hear me out until I finish my thought. Right. Or someone might say, I really enjoy, when I'm with my therapist, helps me to share when someone asks me specific questions.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, if someone just said, so what do you want to talk about today? Don't
Nothing.
have a clue,
Everything's
right?
fine.
So you might realize I want to be around people, or I want to have friends, or at least some friends who are really curious about me and who are
Mm-hmm.
actively curious and that they'll ask me random things about me. Like if you like being asked questions, come be my friend because I'm really
Yeah,
good at
it's
it.
really good. Yeah, and I definitely need that.
So, and then, you get more familiar with what you want more of in your life and what you don't want more of. Because sometimes you can also go to a therapist who you can't stand or you don't have a nice dance together. And that's helpful
Yeah.
because then you notice, hey, I don't really like being asked questions, or I don't really like always being asked, well, what do you think is behind that? Like, I just want someone to be like, oh, you feel sad? I'm right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. But for some people, If all a therapist said was, "Oh, you feel really sad, I'm right here." Well, what else?
Tell me what to do.
Right? Like, I need more than just that. And that might
Yeah.
be not just from a therapist, but from the people in your life. Maybe you need more than just someone reflecting back to you how you feel.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you said this already, but not making it bad or wrong, making it information. I think I'm really attuned to black and white and bad and wrong. So if I find some way that works for me, I will either tend to think it's the right way or I'll sound like I'm saying it's the right way when maybe what I just mean is it works for me. And a way I could think of it is this feels good to me in this moment. It's not right forever or wrong forever.
And for everyone, I think the
Yeah.
more we can own this feels good or right or good enough or just right for me for this moment, I think that's a really important phrase to know and use and to come back to often, because the more you're connected to that, how it feels and what's happening in that moment where you feel like it's just right for you, the more we can honor that for other people.
Hmm.
Something doesn't feel just right for them and they let you know that, it's not a personal attack,
Yeah.
right? It's
And it
just,
gives me space too. Like, imagine if I came to you to share something that felt scary to share, and for some reason you had an anger response I had never experienced from you before. Instead of making that a permanent situation, I can also be growing my capacity to be with an unexpected response and what that brings up in.
I think this is a great point because sometimes we hold people to these unhuman expectations, right? It's also good to know, what is it like to have an unexpected response? Can I be with that? And also, what do I make it mean about the other person, about me and our relationship and the situation and the future and all the things,
Hmm.
right? And I've talked with people, who have experienced this in their life with people, and it's been really devastating for them. And they realize it's devastating because they paint the whole picture with that one brush now. And of
Yes.
course, there's some things in life that happen that it sort of warrants paint, it really doesn't, whatever the bad thing was that happened, like, doesn't matter how much good there was, it really can't make up for this thing that was hard or bad or wrong. But most things that we're talking about, it's like your partner said this thing that really hurt your feelings. Okay. I'm not going to minimize that. I don't want to minimize that. That's valid. Do you also have evidence that for the most part, they always come back and they always, want to make sure you're understood in the end? I actually had this conversation with a client recently. And she had this expression on her. She's like, "Oh, he does, but he does always. We do always come back to, and do you feel heard? Do you feel okay? Like, what can I do to make things better?" And not from this place of it's just lip service. Because I asked her that, like, do you sense, is it lip service? Or do you really see like aligned action paired with those words over time? She's like, no, like, I do see, like, he's good at repair. Like, oh, so what is it like now to notice? And we track things in the body. What is it like now to notice there was a rupture? Like, there was a moment where you felt really hurt by his words. And when you zoom out, you see that he's someone who takes action to ensure that you find repair together, to come back and take responsibility. Like, over and over, that's what you're witnessing. She's like, oh, when I look at that incident through that lens, I feel a lot better.
Mm.
But when I only look at it through that one lens of he said something that hurt my feelings, and I can't no longer connect to all these other pieces of evidence I have with this person, then I get really scared, rightly so, and very defensive. And I just want to pull away, or whatever your protective mechanism is, right? So yeah, it's a really important skill, I think, to be able to see the pieces and see the bigger picture. So, Steph, you're talking about how we can take advantage of the people in our lives to help us practice a new skill, right? Or experience something different, or feel inspired to, right? Or do, or grow a belief of what's possible, right? When I look at certain people, like, I remember looking at one of our friends, very successful in business, and also just a really kind human being. I'm just going to say Shay. Like, I look at her and I'm like, you're so gifted. You're so talented. And like, you're very successful in, that realm of what you do. And you're just a good friend and a good person and a normal, like a really freaking normal person and human. And I was like, oh, being
So cool.
successful and using your gifts is not just reserved for some people who are not like me. Like, maybe that's possible. So like growing your belief in what's possible, right? She was also my person when it came to growing the belief that it's possible to be like angry and fiery and really stand your ground for yourself and for something you believe in, and be nice and soft and welcoming and accepting. It's like, oh, you can be both those things? I thought you just had to be one or the other, right? Which is why I was like a people pleaser for so long. You were someone for me that showed me that silliness could be allowed and safe and healthy. And there's things that I do with Steph now that would have mortified me in the past that I would have never done. But it was a gradual practicing. And I remember the specific day. Like there's lots of incidences, but like one specific one was when you do the impression of, I don't know her name, Imogen something.
Imogen Poots. It's nothing to do with real Imogen Poots. Yes.
No, but like Steph makes this weird, funny, silly face, gets right up into the webcam and like uses this like just wild, weird, wacky voice and says weird crap. And I was like, there's no way. Like, who is this human being? And like, what? Like, I like her and I respect her and I think she's great and hilarious. And what is she doing right now? And you served for me as like, oh, that's possible. And so I remember one day I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna shove my face in front of the webcam and like make weird sounds and funny faces. And it was sort of like uncomfortable, but this rush as well. And this afterwards, I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then after that, I was like, oh, that was sort of fun. I want to do some more. That was the beginning for me of really, I feel like being able to lean into that silly, playful side that I always thought was wrong and need to be tucked away. And I wouldn't be seen as professional or intelligent or all the whatever things I was conditioned to believe. But like having you in my life was like a real, let's say, life changing for me because I chose to use you for that purpose as inspiration, as an example, as someone to practice with in real time. Yeah.
I love it.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, take advantage of your friends.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've two other experiences that it's been the opposite way. Actually, I want to speak of this one first. This one is not so much of I took advantage of someone that I really knew well. It was actually a stranger. I remember being in my first round of CRT, and I can't remember the exact, like what exactly happened, but I remember there were these two men who were Asian guys, and something hit different for me there. Like I was still in that time of a lot of, I think, trying to hide my cultural identity, like from myself, right? And a lot of probably, what's that word that they use these days? Internalized racism, right? And I was like around these two guys who Asian dudes, like my brother is Asian, my dad's Asian, like I have Asian men in my life, you know, who I love and care about. But I was like, these are like great dudes. Like that didn't surprise me that they were great dudes. Like they were great dudes, regardless of Asian, Caucasian, whatever. But it was a reminder for me, like, don't hide from that part of yourself. Like, just own that part, own your Chinese heritage. Stand here like you belong because you do. And so they didn't necessarily do anything, but I was just watching them sort of go through life. And I was like, I deserve a spot here too, just as much as anyone else. And that changed something for me. And I remember my processing days. CRT used to be on a Thursday night.
It's conscious relationship training for those who don't know.
Yes. So Friday night or Friday morning in the shower would be my reflection time. And I would take what got stirred up in me on Thursday night and be like, this is like a little bit of how much of a geek I am. What am I going to practice this week? I was like, I'm going to practice being a little bit more in touch with my Chinese heritage this week. Whatever that means. I didn't know exactly what that meant. But like one day it might have meant like, I'm going to go on YouTube and look up some Cantonese videos and see if I still understand some stuff in my own language. I think sometimes I spent looking for a podcast and like seeing if I could understand what they were saying. And one time I was like looking on Netflix. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can find a movie where they're speaking Cantonese and I can understand some of it. It can be simple stuff like that. It could be, I'm going to go cook a dish that my mom used to make all the time and like connect to that part of my heritage and like feel good and okay about that being me. So there's so many different ways to use who's around you. So that was another one for me. And then I want to speak about how I know I have been this person for other people in different ways, but career change, I've had people look at me and be like, how did you do it? When I tell them I was a tax consultant, they look a bit mortified for me, which I understand. They're like, but how did you do it? Or when I switched out of working for a government funded nonprofit to private practice, how did you do it? Like, is that possible for me too? And so look for who those people are going to be in your life. And often those people are happy to talk to you, or happy to share their story, or happy to share what supported them through that time, or any sort of nuggets of wisdom they learned through going through that themselves that they would be happy to pass on to you, or even just to like remind you this is available to you as well, right? You are no less worthy of having this experience. And I think that was really important for me. One more thing happened many times. So these are the two that really stuck out for me. One was someone had logged on to a call. I think it was a free call that Shay was hosting for Rising Woman. And there were hundreds of people on this call. And someone DM'd me in the Zoom chat and said, thank you so much for being here. There's no one usually who looks like me facilitating calls like this. And like seriously made me want to cry. And also remember why it's important that we each just show up in the world.
Yeah.
Carry the responsibility of, I need to be that for other people, but to be reminded that us showing up and just doing our thing and living our life without hiding, and sometimes doing it in ways that are very comfortable for ourselves, and sometimes leaning into our growth edge, can be such a gift for someone else to see what's possible for themselves.
Yes. And
similar kind of situation, I was facilitating a workshop in, what do you call those things? Like a summit kind of thing. I was asked to be a facilitator. And someone messaged me in the chat and said, I've never seen someone look like me be a counselor or a therapist or a coach. Like, I can't remember which country she was in. I'm not saying that like I'm the only one, but like in her world and who and what she was exposed to, she's like, I don't see this. And she's like, thank you. Because now I feel like she's like, I've always wanted to work in this profession, but I never thought that I could do that. And seeing you love it and do what you're passionate about and look like me, that makes a difference for me. Like, wow. Right? So you never know when you're making a difference for someone. Just going about your life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we can also be the catalyst for the inner work that other people are doing. Totally.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gigi. All right. Do you have a closing practice in mind?
Yes. It's a very subtle one, but it's just playing with the spine. So notice how it naturally is positioned and bring something different to it. So I don't even want to say do this or do that, but just change it a little bit and see how those little adjustments feel. Right? I'm like, oh, if I make myself into a sturdy stick, doesn't feel good. If I soften a little, there's some sturdiness, that feels sort of nice. And if I plop over a little bit, partway through, not as good. All right. So just playing. Their spine, I mean, I don't know, like spine has a lot of ability to move. Right? What happens when you play with that?
Yeah, this is a good analogy for really what we're talking about, like playing with our own inner experiences physically and testing it out. I'm noticing that doing a lot of core training, and I noticed the other day I went to reach for something and my body was prepared to have to brace myself in a way that I no longer had to because I have bigger muscles in different zones, and just putting my spine back in a way that even a few weeks ago might have felt like an excessive amount of backwardness now feels supported and comfortable in a way that it didn't a month ago, and letting that be true.
Yeah. Right. So even like the simple letting the spine collapse a bit and then bringing a little bit more sturdiness to it. And like you get to define what sturdiness means. Right. And playing between those two places. Where's the sweet spot, right? Which feels good? Maybe both feel good. Maybe there is a sweet spot. Maybe there isn't one sweet spot.
Yeah. Moving target. Yeah. Thanks, Gigi. Anything else you want to say?
I don't think so. I think that's good.
Thank you guys then for being with us this week. As always, please do like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Lovely.